Hello, my name is Ron. In this video I'm going to show how I built a utility cart using EMT Conduit and Plywood using very simple tools. It can be used indoors or outdoors, on smooth or rough surfaces, and is suitable to be used in the yard for various purposes. The framework of the cart is built out of 3/4 inch EMT conduit, the type you can get at most any hardware store. It has 3 shelves made out of 1/2 inch plywood. It uses 90-degree structural connectors to hold the EMT framework together, and has 4 10-inch tires on axles. Now, one reason that I wanted to build this is to make it easier to use a long extension cord when doing certain projects outside. And another reason was to have a portable umbrella for shade when working outside in the yard on hot sunny days. The dimensions for this cart were dictated by where it would be stored in my garage, but it could easily be made to most any dimensions that would work for you. I would like to note that I have received no compensation of any kind from anyone or any company to make or upload this video. Any mention of specific vendors in this video is for informational purposes only, not for advertising purposes. Having said all that, let's get started with how the cart was built. So here are the items I'm using to build this utility cart. First of all, we have a 3/4 inch EMT conduit, which is used for the framework of the cart, and 1-inch conduit, both of which are found in most hardware stores. I'm using some EMT straps to connect the conduit to the plywood, the half inch plywood that I'm using for the shelves. And here we have the 90-degree structural connector. These are the pieces that hold the frame together. They come in 2 parts, which are held together by 2 bolts and a nut. And the way they're used is when you put them together like this, and you put one piece of pipe through here. In my case, that's generally the uprights, and one piece of pipe here, and one piece of pipe here. So when you have those all tightened down real good, it makes for a very strong and secure connection. Now this cart will have 2 sets of 10-inch tires with an axle running between each set of 2 tires. The main part of each axle is a 5/8 inch threaded rod, and the rod will be covered by a piece of, once it's cut, it will be covered by a piece of EMT, 3/4 inch EMT. However, you can see that there's a lot of wiggle room in there, and that's the reason why I have this hose, this 5/8 inch hose. So after this is cut, after everything's cut, then the hose goes over the rod, like so, and then the pipe will fit over the hose. So it makes for very little wiggle room that way. Now, a note about garden hoses. Most garden hoses sold at hardware stores are either 5/8 inch or 3/4 inch. I happen to have an old 5/8 inch hose that was just the right size, and it fit perfectly. But if you have a hose, before you go cutting it, you might want to check the outside diameter of your hose. Now, one more note before we go. When you use a pipe cutter like this to cut your pipe, sometimes you will have a lip on the edge like this. You can kind of see that's a little bit thicker than this end here. You can see the difference. You can see the lip when you compare those two right there. So If you have that, you can just use, most pipe cutters have a reamer part on it where you just ream that out. Or you can use a file or something, just so you get rid of that little lip on the end of it. When you try and put it over your hose, it may not work. So next up, a look at the tools I'm using to make this cart. So the tools I used for this project were very few and very simple. A pipe cutter, 5mm hex wrench, a drill screwdriver, hacksaw, and a jigsaw, not pictured here. Now this is a nice little tool where you have your hex wrench with a socket that you can use with your socket driver. And that's all. So here's the finished framework for the cart. It's made out of 3/4 inch EMT conduit. As you can see, it has 2 handles on the top, and the axles, which we'll be going into in a moment here, they are going to go through the bottom of the rail. And the design, I couldn't find one online that's something I liked, so I just made my own design. It's very simple. As far as the connectors go, you can see these 90-degree connectors here. They're made very nicely because the nuts, you don't need a wrench or anything for the nuts, because there's a indentation, which you probably can't see in this video, but there's a little indentation here where the nuts don't turn when you turn the bolt, and it makes it very nice. You can just pretty much use your Allen wrench. You don't need a wrench on the other side to hold the nut. They are very sturdy. They're called structural connectors for a reason. You can jump up and down on this thing all day, and these connectors would not budge a bit. The next thing I do is put the wheels on it, so I'll show you that in just a moment. Okay, so I have the things laid out that I'll be using to put the tires on with. And I will show you how I did this. I took a 5/8 inch rod, threaded rod, put it through, took a washer, just a flat washer, put on one tire, another washer, and a nut, and I left enough room between the unit and the tire so that it wouldn't rub. Put another washer on the other side. And made sure everything was evened up. And I cut the threaded rod to the right size. And then I put on the garden hose over the threaded rod. Put that through here. So you see there's really no wiggle room once you get the garden hose in there. Adjusted the lengths down the washer. By the way, this part goes toward the unit. Another washer. And a nut. And repeat for the other tire. So that is how I installed the tires. So everything is set up for painting. I have the framework suspended from the tripods I made earlier this year out of EMT Conduit, and I supported them with a 1-inch EMT Conduit rod through where the axles go. Just tied it up to my framework, and the paints I'm using a primer, a white primer with a silver metallic paint. So this is the final product. Everything's been painted and assembled, the cord reel has been attached, and the umbrella holder has been added. One feature of the umbrella holder is it can be extended to get a bit more height for an umbrella. The sidebar photos show how this is done by having some holes drilled in the larger tube and using a bolt that the smaller tube can rest on. So this is the end of this video. If you found it useful, it would be nice if you clicked the like option. Thank you very much for watching.